Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's Nature Folklore Sessions, 15th of August, 2021. And I forgot to upload the intro. So better get on with the show. So there's no intro video just now. I hope you're hearing me loud and clear. Thank you for joining me. It's our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, and expressing your inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, arts, craft, performance, and problem solving. Now, this afternoon, I hope we're on. There was something. Right. Hello. It looks like we've got some. I got notices. There's tech issues. Let's access. Okay. Sorry. Twitter people have gone. I've just got to get this. Oh, right. Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Some technical issues with the StreamYard, and I can just about get on with the show now. So sorry about that. That was a thing. Right. I'm back live again. Okay. Sorry about that. Do I need to start from the beginning again? I just got cut off by the StreamYard service. First time that's really happened by them. So apologies for that. And as I say, weekly time of exploring our nature-centered folklore and connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, expressing inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, arts, craft, performance, and problem solving. So I think I can get started because this afternoon, if I can make sure we're not getting cut off this time, we've got part two of covering the myths and legends of the Crom Cruach and Crom Dubh. And this completes this year's Lunasa series, the first harvest series that I've been doing. And I see people are coming live, so I haven't lost you with that cutoff that I had right at the beginning. Thank you for joining. Anyway, these nature folklore sessions, as I do remind, is it's all thanks to our sponsors and our sponsors through Patreon, our subscribers. And so thank you very much, because it helps to pay the rent, as they say. It pays for the subscriptions and make sure that I can be on the air each Sunday. Even sometimes I have to try and be on the air. And so thank you all, and thank you for your support. So I think really, let's see who is with us today. And there's, we got a signal problem now. Oh, I'm really getting off the bat. Right. I'm really, hang on. Sorry about this. There we go. There's Gary. God, the tech issues at the beginning. Gary in Germany is tuned in. Great. And we got Shelley here. Good day to you. And I hope one or two managed to get back on. I see the signal is back up. Yes, great. So we should get more people. Whoa, we're really kind of toing and froing today. And it's quite an interesting session. It is just me. And luckily, I did get the photographs up this week, unlike last week. But I'll give a wee bit of a recap. So last Sunday, I introduced Crom Cruach, and here's a nice illustration there. And as a god of the ripening corn and the cereals, and also the goddess Groinia. And I compared them to other known legends of Lu and Teochew, and I introduced the plain of Maxlect, the plain of adoration. It's a region that's now Western County Cavan, and it kind of slips into a bit of Leitrim. And I also speculated how Crom fitted into the sequence of the ancient book of invasions. And I then introduced you to Tiganmas, and there's not many artist impressions of the Tiganmas. This is a bit of a dark picture, But that's about the best I can get for you at the moment. Maybe next year I'll find some better artists on this one. And anyway, he's said to have brought the Crom culture to Ireland, firstly to the Machsle Plain. And I also looked into, I'm going through some tech stuff, sorry again, there we go. I also looked into what ancient times that Tecumseh was present in, because that can be confusing. It's said to have been of any time from 100 BC right into 4,000 or 5,000 BC. So I speculated whether the Crom statue was brought in by Tecumseh. Was it gold or was it gold and silver? Here's an artist's impression of that. There's a lot more silver than gold on that one. And or was it just a stone covered with silver? Or was it actually a tall leader? Was it a human being that was dressed in gold and silver? Because it was said that Tecumseh, he was a gold and silver worker who taught that, and he actually made kind of ceremonial armor that people would wear. So there's that confusing thing. Was the Crom Cruach a large, tall stone looking over, or was it a tall person? And I talked about the 12 pillars of bronze that was around the main statue and what they may have been. Again, it could have been bronze stones, could have been colored in bronze, could have had sort of bronze cloaks on them, or was it sort of warriors, Fianna type people that were wearing bronze? They had the bronze daggers, the bronze swords. Anyway, excuse me. I also brought in the idea of the Fomorians actually being well-crafted farmers, because a lot of the myths we're told, they come in on their boats, they come flooding in from what's now Scotland. But as I was talking about, there's another culture that seemed to flow this way, where it showed the Fomorians, they might have been the leaders that were incredibly crafted in the seasons and farmings and all of the astronomy and mathematics that goes into that. So there's a few pointers that I went into last week of how Tecumseh may well be Fomorian. And I did mention the Janus figure as well on the Boar Island, if I can just bring some pictures of that up. First of all, there we go. There's Max Slack. I'll bring the map up again. If you can actually see Ballyconnell to the west of there. That's the entire, what was the Machsle plain there. But Boar Island, here's a symbol that you're familiar with. That's one face. And is this Crom Cruach and Crom Dubh on the one statue? You got the one face there, you got another face the other side there, and they call it the Janus because there's two faces. There's the two faces and a bit of crisscross lozenge type artwork in between, and people kind of leave money there. So that's a lovely place to go to. On Boar Island. It's in a cemetery there, ancient. And I pointed that through references in ancient text, I haven't got the spelling up, but the Ballian School, there's indications of Tecumseh and Bala possibly being the same. I haven't got any text references to that book, but I believe it was kind of in the ascendants, the ancestors of the O'Connors that put that together. It's a small publication. I did have a picture of a cover of it, but I've lost it, unfortunately. So I'll have to bring it up next year. Then I made my first references to the Balkans, and especially Serbia, 7000 BC time. It was the time of the remarkable Vinca culture. And there was the discovery of the Blagotin temple. And here's some Blagotin temple there. That's what was discovered. And this was only in 1991 that the discovery was made. This is all new stuff. And, now that's an interesting thing there. That was within there. I wondered if I got that picture up. Symbolism of fertility. There was loads of these sort of goddesses, and they were in this position. And one of the things that was mentioned was I suppose as a man, I can imagine this. This was sort of celebration of ploughing. And just imagine the lads ploughing, or even when they're actually cutting the barley and the cereals, if they actually use horses or oxen. There they are, the lads behind these animals all day. All this is the rear end of that. And you can imagine what goes through the rear end. And this time of harvest from May, the Balkan, right through to now when the barley is being cut and so forth, it's all related to fertility. There's got to be good fertility for a good harvest. And this, they say the goddess is relating also to fertility, and it's in the image of perhaps the horse or the oxen and the poor man behind. And then there's that whole imagery of copulation from the rear. I better leave that one alone. Anyway, I think you get the point of that as well. Now, near the southern end of the Danube River, that's where the Balkan temple is. There's a nice picture of what the area it is. I think that's called the gateway, the Iron Gateway part of the Danube. A couple of pretty pictures of there. So this is by where the Balkan temple was found. And it was discovered by a man called Svetozar Stankovic in 1991. Now, he's not the philosopher. There's a famous philosopher in Serbia that has the same name. And somewhere I do have a picture of Stankovic, if I can get him up, and then you can sort of roughly see. Here he is. This is him in the Balkan. That's him there, and he's got one of those goddess figures. And this gave a remarkable insight. And if he had continued, because unfortunately, Stankovic, he started in 91, but he died in 96. So there was only 5 years of research. And if it was feeling that if they continue, because they only pulled up 2.5% of the whole site, and it was stopped. And I talked more about that last week. And it's not even protected, which is very strange. But it was amazing what was found in that little bit. And if they continued, it would have totally rocked the ancient Persian and Egyptian history. And Egypt's trying to catch up with new finds as it is anyway. Even some of the Turkish history would have been rocked if the discoveries kept going like what they're doing. Anyway, I then introduced the Balkan Vinca culture, and that moved along the waterways from the Balkans to the Baltic, and especially to an area north of Poland, near the Gdansk, that's known as Pomerania. And I think when we say Pomerania, a lot of us are familiar with this sort of, don't they? They're nipper dogs, but they can, obviously, they're very friendly with their owners. Very pretty area. I'd love to go there because there are these wonderful beaches, especially to the east of Gdansk. A lovely peninsula, gorgeous area. Be lovely to visit because they do get good weather in the summer. And I got some other picture here, I think, of Gdansk. No, I don't. This is to the west of Gdansk. There's a place that has three goddesses. So they have the three hags, the three goddesses there. Can't remember the name of the site, but there we have that there as well. Now, northwest along the Danube, that's where some cultures went. Some went to Pomerania. Some went and just carried on following the Danube. And that's how these cultures moved and evolved over what is Scotland and Ireland there. Someone did a sort of rough map. There we go. There's the Vinca culture there. You see the red arrow. They got to Pomerania there, moved across over to Scotland, and then sweeping down through Ireland there. That's someone's assessment from what was found in Serbia as well. So now this afternoon, I'm going to continue and conclude this Lunasa series. This is the fourth one. And during this 4 or 5 years of digging there in Serbia, the Blagatin, Stankovic concluded that he believed that Blagatin, the temple there, was where the European Neolithic agriculture was born. And because a lot of archaeologists and anthropologists, they say it all started in Turkey. And there's a famous Turkey place. It's actually in the news today, talking about it being the most ancient temple and more discoveries. And this is one of these places that has to have a new discovery every year, like Stonehenge, even New Grange, to bring the tourists along, I think. I can't remember exactly what it was. I just skipped over the article. I saw it early today, but I'm not really talking about Turkey. I better move on from that. But there is also other theories that lots of the farming came from Ethiopia as well. And anyway, Stankovic claimed that Blagatin is the oldest temple in Europe himself. And it's a shame there wasn't more discovered, and a shame there isn't a program to really go into it, especially alongside the pyramids of Bosnia as well, because they're not far away. But it could well be that Blagatin is the second or third oldest temple in the world. Now, during the short time that there was some archaeological digging, they believe they discovered the oldest evidence of a complex astronomical and mathematical knowledge, a culture that had this amazing knowledge. It's talked about in mythology as coming from Babylon, through the Persian culture, through the Minoan culture, but here it is sitting in Serbia. And this knowledge was needed anyway to determine the solstices and equinoxes. If they couldn't determine the solstices and equinoxes, they didn't have the Gregorian calendar like we have today. If they didn't have a pattern like this, from observing as above, as below type of thing, and understanding the precession of equinoxes, there's no way could they have a farming season. And it's through this knowledge of mathematics and geometry that it seems that's what made it possible to go from foraging, hunter-gathering, into a season of farming. And I think that's something, because of the convenience of what we got now, it's something we don't really think about that much. But it's so essential for this sort of Lunasa time, I think, to sort of step back and understand, where did this start? Because we're so tied into this Gregorian calendar that came about in the 16th century, we forget how the ancients had this incredible attunement to the heavens in relation to what's going on Earth. And so they discovered that this Blagatin temple was aligned to the various cardinal points of the year. There's stones there that are aligned to each of the equinoxes, the solstices, and from that they work out the cross quarters, the midpoints between the two, because in this climate, and even in the Serbian climate, those midpoints are so essential for ensuring the right sowing and the right harvesting. So Stankovic and his team, they claim they discovered definite evidence of the development of, I suppose we can call it solar agriculture, and in a way thinking about those goddesses, fertility, wisdom as well. And just pulling up some more photographs to show you here. Is this the one I want? Yeah, this is a sort of, they reckon this is a bit of mapping, one of the stones they found in Bogating. So that was the thing, they could understand the astronomy applied to Earth, and they could start drawing up maps as well. So it's believed that all of this wisdom and knowledge of the skies, the solar calendar, and the successful annual growing, harvesting, and storage of agricultural crops. There's some crops. These are discoveries from Bogatin as well. Look at the seeds. They found all these seeds there as well, and all these sort of toys that are related to that. But it was all packed together into what we may define as a cult today. And we think of a cult as perhaps a nasty thing, but I think it's just short for culture. It's a sort of set culture pattern of things that the clan or tribe were doing. But this culture was more rooted within the people rather than be a religion. We think of a cult as an alternative religion, but it was a complete rootedness of farming and understanding and passing that on at that time. And it was said that this knowledge and experience was what transported and shared through the lands, not only into Bulgaria, but along the Danube. across northern England and Scotland, and then over to what is now Ireland era. Now, a lot of this story fits in with what we're told about the Tuatha De Danann. Some of the stories, the fantasy stories we're told, is that the Danann, Tuatha De Danann, they're related to the goddess Danus of the Danube. And these people follow the Danube, as I showed. Bogatin was at the south end there of the Danube, and they followed that because they would have navigated through water, because it's very hard in ancient times to navigate on land through forests. So looking at the link of astronomy, science, art, and the goddess Danu, let's go back here. There's a typical bit of Danube that they followed along. And with respect to the goddess Danu, there's a bit of a map, if you can follow it. That's where the Danube goes. That's the Black Sea on the right, and that's the path of it. I haven't got Bogatin marked there, and it goes off into Germany there. But there were other waterways, or there might have been a landway, but there was waterways that would get them over to possibly the North Sea, which was quite smallish, I think, in ancient times. And then there's you might see the waterway that goes through Hungary. That was one way in, it was said. And then there was the Viti, apparently had a waterway, both of them going off to the Baltic. But there's other significant clues to consider. One story is Tigramus as a kin introducing the drinking from bullhorns. And do I have a bullhorn picture here? There's some men I love that picture. The men drinking from the bullhorns, anyway. And I forgot, I got a picture of the artist's impression there of Danu as well. So I better slip that in since I'm talking about the Danube. But there's these men here drinking with bullhorns, communal drinking that was done. And this seemed to be very much a thing that got settled in the poor men. Oh, and then getting tongue-tied here. Pomeria, up in what's North Poland now. But it's said that the drinking from these bullhorns was part of the worshipping tribute to the god of agriculture. And I say God, unfortunately, because it does seem to be very patriarchal, this whole Crom thing at the moment. And it's because I'm presenting Crom Cruach today. With the Blogating agriculture, it was part of the cult of the Vinca. That's the Vinca. I've got a map a bit later on to show you the whole Vinca area. And this culture is spread, as I say, through the waterways up to well north of the Danube and into the Baltic Sea countries, which Pomeria is. So now in Pomerania, sorry about that, Pomerania, let's get that right. And as I say, it's around near Gdansk area. And the ancient people that were living there, they were known as Slavs. And stories tell of the Pomeranians, the Slavs, that they sacrificed people during Samhain. And especially during, if I can get this right, they do have some towers there. There we go. That's Belivid. That's a chieftain, a leader chieftain, almost like the Crom Cruach. You know, we were saying about Crom Cruach being a tall stone. Here we have, up here in Pomerania, we have Belivid, or some people know it as Vetovid. And that sort of translates either way as meaning white, bright, and the shining one. Now, here's imagery. Do I have another one? I think I've got another one. That's it. That's another one. Well, that's a real moody photo, whoever ever took that one. I haven't got the credits on that one. But this imagery, his imagery there, let's see if you can recognize it in the picture. It's depicted with a sword or bow in one hand and a drinking horn in the other. So those were two very important points with the... I was just looking at something else here. So the Belivid, very important for the celebration of the Pomeranian Belivid or Svetovid. The drinking horn is said to have been introduced to this island by Tigramus when he arrived at Mark Slack. It's also said to be an instrument of divination as well during the Slavic season of ceremonies through the years. So the whole thing will, I suppose, get inebriated on the stuff in those bullhorns and then look at the statue. And it's like similar to the divination I would think of looking into a holy well, that type of thing. So the tales of the Slavic mythology of the Horn of Plenty, I think, wouldn't you agree, it's very similar to Dagda's Cauldron of Plenty. Let's get Dagda up with his bowl here. There we go. And that's a kind of a story of this Lunasa that I've kind of missed out. I haven't included, I suppose I'm covering so much stuff over these 4 weeks. We'll cover him another time. But as I've speculated, he's also in Scotland. Dagda is actually celebrated as being a servant of the Doida. And the Doida is a kayak within the burgh on the Isle of Mull in the Inner Hebrides. And she had a mating servant, just like Doida was a mating servant to the Kayak, to the Morrigan in Ireland here. And I got some pictures. I lived by here. There we go. That's a view of the burgh. And this is a painting, actually, but I lived very close to here for a while when I arrived on Mull. But here's a close-up to the burgh. And at the end, it has these wonderful waterfalls. So the wind actually catches them. And behind those waterfalls are caves. I used to do walking retreats where we'd go down to here. There's a fossilized hazel tree, and we'd sleep in the caves overnight. It's full of thousands of years old back guano. So it's like sleeping on a sort of soft mattress. It's absolutely fabulous. But I haven't done that for years. But anyway, I'm going off the point here. But somehow the servant of the Doida was eventually called Doida himself, and he may have become Dagda. That's how possibly the name. But I'm going to show you another variation on that name, because we have this speculation of Dagda and his Cauldron of Plenty as it being the same symbol as the Horn of Plenty that's used in reverence of Crom Cruach as well. So is Dagda also Crom Cruach or Crom Dubh? Or is he all of those? Is he the whole dual thing of the Cruach and the Dubh? Well, Dagda and his harp also. He carries a harp, and that's fascinating due to the existence, and I talked about this last week, the Crom Cruach harp. And the various angular harps, if we go right back to the Persian, ancient Persia, what's now Iran, and across the North Mediterranean through Europe, the harp was always a significant divination musical tool, whereas the pipes were also perhaps more familiar in Ireland, certainly in Scotland. They seem to have evolved south of the Mediterranean. The harps went to the north of the Mediterranean, pipes to the south, and there's still strong piping traditions in places like Tunisia and Algeria as well, even Morocco as well, along North Africa. Anyway, I've been babbling a while. Let's have a look what your comments are so far. So thank you for holding on to this. There's Barbara Humbry here. Hello. And Edward from Sligo. And Cloud Sparks here as well. Good morning from Sherry. Wishing everyone a lovely day in coastal Maine. And Chandler's joined us, our lovely regular poet from time to time. Good morning. I actually dreamt of Crom Cruach last night. Well, that must have been fascinating. Have we got a story to tell there? Who else we got there? There we go, Chandler. Oh, there's Leah G through the YouTube. Hello. I'm Madeira in Portugal. Thank you for much. Lovely to have you on board and watching. Thanks very much. And Barbara Humbry saying interesting. So to have a quick drink, and I'm going to continue with the saga because we've really got some juicy stuff coming up. As I say, I hope it's not too wordy for you, because next week onwards we will have guests. But I think it's a bit of folklore that I'm deeply fascinated with. So thank you for sharing with this as well. Right, where were we going with this? So I better get back to Crom Cruach, who's told of as an old Irish god of agriculture, and very closely associated with Tyrconnell, who's sometimes known as Tyrnmas. Sorry, I haven't got the spellings up in banners today, but Tyrconnell is referred to as being a cult king when the story of Maxlag is told. But I think it's fairer to think of him as a culture king, because the old stories of Tyrconnell is said to be of him being a person who brought the components of cultured, what we call cultured civilization today. And it looks by Bogatin and the discoveries there that possibly all this originated from south of the Danube in the Vinca area of Serbia, which is beside the Danube. This is a very rough map. If you know a bit of geography, you can work that out. There's Italy kicking the boot, Sicily to the left, and a lot of that's the former Yugoslavia, and that's pretty much a rough thing of the Vinca. And again, there's another Danube shop. That's a cloudy one of the Danube going through the Vinca, and that's actually Vinca town that's in that picture. That's what's left of it, and that's very much a tourist destination now. And here's a Vinca idol. And they have these idols. They have these two head idols as well, but not facing different ways. So that's Crom Cruach or Crom Dubh, or their equivalents. But that seems to be a familiar sculpture, is those two head things in that area. And that's not only from Bogatin, that's from other archaeological digs in the area. So this farm craft, it included cereal farming. On top of that, there was the smithing of copper, then bronze, certainly gold and silver, the dyeing of fabrics, and also the making of music and art, and introduced that with the Crom Cruach, of course. Now, did all this land, did this all arrive here as a new culture? In Maxlag, is this what really happened from the Vinca area? This is the question I'm asking today. Is this what arrived in County Cavan? Now, a bigger mystery that I may have opened up now is over what you may have defined as the Nemedians, Furbolgs, Tuatha Fomorians, and Milesians. If you go into the Book of Invasions, there's different stories for each of those. There's like a patterns. The Nemedians, they arrived with Furbolgs with their slaves. They caught some virus or disease or plague, and they vanished. Furbolgs took over. Tuatha came in, had a bit of a ding-dong with the Furbolgs. They decided, no, we better share this together. Then along come the Fomorians, next sort of battle. And then they sort of worked out something for themselves. And then come the Milesians that set up eventually from the Milesians. They really took over, sent the Tuatha underground, and from the Milesians, eventually we had a Gaelic culture. Now, because of these recent discoveries, not only in Serbia, but also in Ukraine and Poland, I'm starting to speculate that the Furbolgs, Tuatha and the Fomorians were all possibly of the same culture origins. It said they were all blue-eyed and blonde people, but there were changes during their arrivals. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Nemedians were people that arrived on this island of Ireland from Africa, because there is always talk of a race of people that live beside the water. We have the Middens in Sligo, where the shells are in piles. And they were, again, I mentioned a lot of this last week, side locks, rivers, and they fed off the fish, they fed off the shellfish, they fed off the seaweeds, and they fed off the plants that grew near water, was how they survived. So you think of those as largely a hunter people who survived by the water and the sea, and they lived from all those wonderful foods. Now, I would suspect that the Nemedians, if that was the case, they were forest people as well. But with the Furbolgs arriving, all of a sudden with the Furbolgs, what we read about is they actually set up a seasonal system of agriculture. There may have been an interesting merging with the Nemedians for a while. The Nemedians might have gone into a bit of agriculture, but I'm really speculating. But when the Tuatha arrived, it's told that when the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Furbolg leaders met just before the battle, and there's an artist impression of this, if I can catch up with this. Now, that's it. There we go. That's an impression of the two leaders. I forget their names. Someone might be able to put them up for me. I used to know them off by heart, but I've forgotten. And anyway, there they are. They're meeting up. And the one thing that was quoted about them is they remarked how their ancestry were the same. And which is an incredible point. And this was before they went into battle. Oh, we're of the same ancestors, we're of the same goddess, everything was the same. But I feel the differences were that perhaps, the Furbolgs, they came in a different way. I don't know, they say they came in through Belgium, so maybe they followed the Danube. But they were much more of a farming race, it seems. The Furbolgs very much into their farming. But the Tuatha Dé Danann somehow, they perhaps have become more scholarly. They were the ones that had somehow taken on more the geometry, the mathematics, the observations. They could plan the seasons. They could plan the year ahead because they somehow perhaps had the astronomy and mathematics more than the Furbolgs. But that is speculation because they think of Mead and think of your Ushnak and what was going on there, the planning for the whole country and the celebration. So I'm really speculating with that, but that's one possibility I'm thinking. And if the Tuatha Dé Danann were spending their time with their astronomy and their sciences and calculations, it meant they were less time getting their hands in the soil, less time actually doing the farming, which the Furbolgs were doing more of. So perhaps the Tuatha Dé Dananns thought, oh, we're of a higher elite than the Furbolgs. Is that what set off the battle? But even after the battle, they came together because they needed each other. It seems that they couldn't survive with each other, and especially with the Tuatha Dé Danann. It looks like they took over Meath, but maybe a bit of Mead. But when it comes to Ulster, Connaught, and Munster, what you hear of in ancient times were the Furbolg clans keeping going, and especially on Mark Slack. It seemed to be very much a Furbolg domain to start with. Anyway, the Fomorians. So let's consider the name. The Fomorians. How similar is that to Pomeranians? I think the words are so incredibly similar. And maybe the Fomorians are, therefore, they have an ancestry in the Siberian Vinca tribes. Again, show you the mapping there. And when you hear of the Fomorians, you hear coming down from Scotland. There we are there, coming from Scotland. But where did it come to with Scotland? There we go, across from Pomerania, and going westwards there and coming up perhaps from the Vinca area. Now, there's other break-offs from the Vinca tribes that ventured west. They follow the Danube, as I mentioned, and still being an agriculture, mathematics and metals culture, somehow they seem to match similarities of the much later Danes and their Danelaw. But arriving on this island, it's amazing how the Fomorians also seem to have a close merging with the Tuatha Dé Danann too. And this, again, was before the Second Battle of Moytura. There was a lot of stories of intermarriage, interconnecting. Even Braze, who was kind of the engineer after Nuada lost his arm, that he was the engineer of this Fomorian invasion, that he himself was half Tuatha Dé Danann, Fomorian. So very close links seem to be there in the history. So, but it would seem to be all about taxing. The people from Pomerania somehow had learned something about taxes, charging taxes. And that would have been a huge challenge against the Tuatha Dé Danann, who weren't familiar with that. So from all of that, to me, it does appear that the entire culture of the Crom Cruach brought Muxlek, when they came to Muxlek, it was seeded by the Vinca agricultural tribe of Serbia, and then amplified by the way the culture developed in the Pomerania region. So the culture would have changed as when left. We're talking about 2,000 years of culture moving. That's a long time. So things definitely would have changed. and then brought here to this island, they say, by Tigamas. Now, before Tigamas, a similar culture seemed to already exist, as I say, in the Mark Select area. Bring that up again. It said the Fomorian has brought that up, and I forget the Fomorian name. I might think of it as I'm talking about it. So I'm asking, was this huge towering statue here, bring him a bay again, of Crom Cruach, was it gold or stone covered in gold or standing chieftain that was dressed in gold? One thing that seems certain is that this figure was something like Buddha. If you're familiar with Buddhism, the Buddha statue, even if you've got one in your garden, it should never be in eye contact. It should never be on equal level, certainly not below level. A lot of Buddhist people, if they see you with a Buddha on the lawn, they could be really disgusted. The Buddha's always got to be higher. It's always got to be higher than the self. And this was the thing with Crom. Crom had to be towering over. And in a lot of the stories with Crom, the reason they're towering over is because Crom represents this ripening sun. And the sun is towering over. And this is where you get the patriarchal, because the sun is always seems to be related as a male thing, whereas underground and the water, very much feminine. Even if you think of yin and yang, the warm there of the yang, but the water and the cool of the soul for the yin. So amazing the connection to me, to the Buddhist and Crom, how there's similarities there. So always look down. Now, whatever the big Crom image was, there's a very famous story of how this was all destroyed by Patrick. And there's a cartoony version. There's Crom sticking his tongue out on the left there, and there's good old Patrick having a go there in typical Patrick style. And it's told that Patrick, he stood on a hilltop and cast out his magic with a wave of his crozier. There he is. He's well in action there. And that's known as the buckle issue, or the buckle ayushta, the staff of Jesus. And I think I got a picture on that, a very religious version of that. Now, the stories they tell of a demon jumping out of that statue as well when it was hit. There he goes, boom, there it goes, and now pops it. Or even there, the demon's already popped out, isn't it? But the stories are told that as soon as he smashed that whole stone up, a demon popped out and it ran away. Here's another one. That's another version claiming they was a martial artist that crashed into the... there he is. He's hitting Crom there with some martial arts there. That's another version. That's an artistic expression of that. Also, the story continues to tell of St. Patrick cursing the 12 bronze statues that was around the main tall one. And when they saw him coming, they just bent. The stones are supposed to have bent over and retreated underground before he even had a chance of touching them with his crozier. So there we go. That's a couple of the many St. Paddy, me crozier yarns that are spread by storytellers and folklore. Right, let's see who's on board and saying is Victoria. Hello, Victoria Galani. Glad to have you aboard. And I trust you're all enjoying the sagas. The last sagas is this 4-stage. This is the 4th one, and the final one. I'm going to come to a conclusion not too far away now. But at last, I'm going to talk about the Killycluggin stone. The Killycluggin stone. There we go. This is a reproduction. It's on the side of the road in Killycluggin, which is why it's called Killycluggin stone. You can drive around it and park. It's very easy to visit. But it's something that's very essential for me to talk about, because this. The actual Crom stone itself was discovered in 1921, and it was buried in the ground. There's where it was found. Well, there's a sort of stone circle area. It was in the ground next to this, and that's on the Killycluggin townland. It's not very well signposted, and the farmers sort of try and chase you away, but it's a right of way. But the original, there's a distance view of it. I think it's beautiful with those trees, and of course that's a winter shot. But the original location of the Crom stone is believed to have been on a mound in Deria townland. I'll just give you a distance shot, and there's that standing stone there. But let's see if I can give you some mapping instruction. This is the whole area of Killycluggin. Let's get this bigger for you. There it goes. And I'm just going to take that comment away so you can have a look. Now, can you see a white area? Go to the one. Should have done another loop for this, but that black circle. Go down to the sort of left of that. You'll see a white area, which is a mound. And that's the Deria townland, and that's the Deria mound where it's the Killycluggin, the original, what they call the Killycluggin stone, the Crom stone, is said to have stood. And it was near there another mound. I can't quite identify it, but that's where the crozier was supposed to have flashed over to, or else Patrick ran up the hill. But that white bit there on the left is said to be where it was originally standing. And that is south of the, or southwest of the Killycluggin townland. And that's southwest of Ballyconnell, the whole shooting match. So at the Killycluggin stone circle, it was moved from there, that mound, up to the stone circle. And when it was discovered, indeed smashed into several pieces. That's actually a couple of pieces there, a photograph taken of it when it was found beside that stone circle. Now, when that whole area was excavated, and it looks like all the bits were sent there, that's what I'm trying to say. And they put it onto a base. They found a base in the excavations, and they found that the stone, that big stone, was leaning to the left from the vertical. And so the archaeologists were reminded of the translation of Crom Cruach as being the bent or crooked one, rather than the towering over one. Anyway, that stone was declared to have been carved at that time by as recent as 100 BC. So this ruffles up the storyteller stories and confuses the whole thing. But I'll go to the replication here, because they're talking about the stone going back a couple of thousand years as well. So when did the Crom Cruach stone come there? There's so many different stories on that. So I apologize, I can't have a definite there. I think the whole idea of the culture coming that way and its celebration is more important than the date myself. Anyway, there we go. That carving, the reproduction, that's known as a Latin culture art, and it's a craft tradition that's kind of developed between the Black Sea there, between Serbia and the Baltic. And it was a tradition that the Romans would have said would have been done by the Keltoi people, which Keltoi became the Celtic word. But that area in between the Black Sea and the Baltic were known as the Keltoi to the Romans. So between the Balkans and the Baltic were the Keltoi. And it said that was one of their art cultures, the Latin or Laton. It's got a couple of different pronunciations. So the stone circle was broken up. That stone circle that I showed you, that was broken. That was erected probably about 2000 BC, if I can get back to it again. 2000 BC for this sort of stone circle-y thing. They reckon that's what that is. So that's more recent than a lot of megalithics, because we're talking about Bronze Age there. And here's another one of the carved stone there. That gives you a little bit more, another variation of the 10. There we got that here with the heads. We got this with the spirals. And that was the art from the Keltoi people. So the megalithic site that I was showing you there, this one here, has absolutely no relation to the Crom stone. So why was it put there? Oh, I'll put this sign for you to read. That's put by the replica. That's worth having that. And again, that's the replica. But going back to the Crom stone, why did the Crom stone arrive here? If it was only 100 BC, why was it put by this Bronze Age stone circle? And as I say, Deria is regarded as the original, or Deria was regarded as the original site but I don't have any information of how the Crom stone was moved from there to this Killycluggin site. I think it's going to be a forever mystery. Anyway, the recovered Crom stones now renamed the Killycluggin stone just because it was dumped here, and it's now in the County Cavan Museum. That's the top end, and there's a base end as well. Both pieces are in the County Cavan Museum. And as I say, we got the replica that I've been showing that's beside the road there, very easy to get around. And it was regarded, even though it's broken up, as a phallic symbol, a fertility stone, very similar to the Turo stone. You've probably been to this one, Gary, a few times. Turo stone up there by Balkan, near Lochary in County Galway. And then there's another one. There's the Castle, what do they call it? It's the Castle Strange one that's out there in Roscommon, not far from the visitors centre there, Rathcrowan. It's not far from there, really. So those are two that are very similar. Now, not far from Killycluggin Mound, there's a tree circle, as I say. I've been showing you that with the stone circle in it. That whole area is known as the Templeport Parish, and I haven't got a picture of it, but a church was put up there in celebration of Patrick and getting rid of the Crom stone. I don't think I have a picture of it at all. No, not this time. And it said that Patrick blessed new converts, people that they said were drawn away from Crom to Christianity. And there's a well by this new church, the Top of Patrick Well, of course, it's called. I haven't got any pictures of that. I should have, but I've lost them. And then when Patrick went off on his travels with his crozier to do some more converting, he left a cleric called Neithbran. And he was to remain as the priest of that church in Killycluggin as well. But when Patrick was gone, guess what Neithbran did? He carried on a Christian form of the Crom faith, of the Crom Cruach or Crom Dubh faith. And as it was custom at the time to attract the local peasants and the pagans to the church, Patrick, before he left, he did actually shift the Crom day, but it was given another date. And now this is where one of the confusing things again. The date, it was said that he moved that celebration to the last Sunday of July and called it Garland Sunday, which is quite interesting because old Pope Gregory, he didn't come up with July where it is now until about 1,000 years after Patrick. So there you go. So where did Patrick? Well, there was a Julian calendar, I suppose. There was a Roman calendar, and there are a lot of stories about how Patrick was associated with the Romans anyway. So possibly it was the Julian one, but that would have been a lot later than the Crom one, I think. I can't remember when the Julian one was. When would it have been? It might be mid-August. Yeah, it might have been around the 15th, thinking of the Julian. Anyways, I pointed out a couple of Sundays ago, it's weird, this last Sunday in July. I find it weird, this whole Garland Sunday thing. Anyway, around the Magselec area, there were... as well as having Garland Sunday around the top of Patrick Wells, which became the custom, there was also the similar celebration in nearby wells of Ballalinan and Mullaglia. I haven't got pictures of them either, but as I say, I'm not sure about Garland Sunday. I'm not sure if Garland Sunday is actually gathered around those wells today. The most famous Garland Sunday is around the Tobernaut, one just outside Sligo. And there you are, you got Garland Sunday there. So that's an idea perhaps of Garland Sunday around the well, and that's around the mass rock that's by the Tobernaut well. There might have been mass rocks by these other wells as well. But suddenly, as being a celebration, it's like a conversion from being a celebration of the first harvest, the cutting of the barley. It's more of a kind of a penance tradition as well. Anyway, move on from that. Messing my thing up. So it was encouraged as well for the Crom tradition to be continued by what was called the Masharag or Mashrush tribe within Mugsleck as well. And one of the Mashrush tribe influences, he was actually a saint as well, Dylan Forgale, and he was the chief Olam for poet of Ireland at one point, about 600 AD. And he was very keen to keep the Crom tradition going. Of course, the church wasn't too keen on it. But why was he a saint? I haven't got a picture of him. Or do I have a picture of him? I should have a picture. I did find. There he is. There's our man, Dallin Forgall. He became a saint after someone attacked him. And the person who attacked him actually chopped his head off. And he managed to actually bend over, pick it up, put his head on again, and his head worked just fine, and that's how he became a saint. Anyway, perhaps his most famous work was the Avra Columcille. This was a set of poems that praised St. Columcille, and this was way after his death, probably 50 years after his death as well. So the Crom observances, tongue twisted. The Crom observance is encouraged by Dallin Forgall. That was kept going way after his death as well, way up into 700 AD and beyond. And there is a book out that's a recent book that sort of covers some of his poetry, if you can find it. But the Crom stuff was finally thrown out when the Rebroim, the O'Briens, they came charging in, trying to take over the area. They were trying to establish a medieval Breffni kingdom, and there's a lot of stories around that. And that ambition took over the Mugsleck area. And although even when they took over, the Crom traditions did return again, but in a very covert way. And I think Crom Cruach kind of vanished. It became more of a Crom Dubh underground celebration. And that kept going actually until quite recently. And I suspect the revival of that Crom reverence happened on various cavern hills around the area. And and I bet after perhaps these nature folklore sessions, someone will get the idea, let's get the celebration of Crom going again in Cavan. So I can see that coming up again as a revival before long. Anyway, what are you saying at the moment? These stones are so amazing, says Kate. I'm glad you appreciate that way over in the distance there. Thank you, Kate, for that. Right, at last I'm going to move from Mugsleck, and I should, I haven't really covered the Crom Dubh very much, but let's go to Grange now in County Limerick by Loch Gur. There we go. And this is a place some of you will be familiar with. Some of you watching now might have gone there with Amantha Murphy. It's a favourite of hers on her pilgrimages. And you might know something about that big stone there too. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But Mantha may not have covered the Croms that much because they are women's groups. And I'm sure she would have beautifully referred to the feminine deities that are told of there. And today I'm linking Croms there and the harvest because that's the subject today. But it's unusual for me, really, to actually give a focus on stone circles or even on farming. It's only at this time of year that I'll do that. But it's truly the time for both of them. So when was the main Grange circle built? When was this built? There's sort of a drawing there of how it is. I want to get that impression for you. Notice that the stones are stuck in almost a sort of pit shape. When you go there now, it looks like a henge. But this is very important for what I'm about to talk about now. And this kind of shows you how this is very much a Lunasa, very much a first harvest celebration time. And this is the best thing we got in Ireland to really show this. But if we knew when the Grange Circle was built, and even the Crom Cruach and Crom Dubh, when their celebration came over, if we knew all this date-wise, this could help us determine how old Crom Dubh as a deity really was. Now, an archaeologist, Helen Roach, she suggested that the Grange stone circle was constructed in the late Bronze Age, about 1000 BC. Now, that would make the circle much younger than most of the other ancient circles in Ireland, especially all these megalithic sites around Cork and Kerry, Wicklow up there in County Down especially. But Helen Roach believes that this circle, the Grange circle, is still on a site that may have been revered by people for thousands of years before that stone circle actually got there. But as a Bronze Age construction, the change of use may have come about. Now, to attempt to explain Grange, I'm going to go back to Serbia again, to a site of circles that looks a lot like Grange. Grange might be larger, but the circles in Serbia, there's a few of them, and they're on a mountain range in southeast Serbia. And I've lost my pictures. I have stunning pictures of this, but sorry, I haven't got them for you this afternoon. But it's an area called Bogova Gumbo. Again, it's a tourist area now, and it's well south of the Bogatin Temple of the Venkas. And it's way in the mountains, to say, the Bogova Gumbo, and it has these circles. And these stone circles on the Bogova Gumbo are known as sun circles. And I've got a picture of one of the sun circles, at least. There we go. That's kind of a modern recreation that sort of mucked things up a little bit. Actually, that's quite a small one. And but they're linked by a modern Gregorian calendar as well. And they have the celebration at these circles in Serbia. They have gatherings, again, starting on the 30th. Well, it's actually not the last Sunday. They actually go for the 30th of July, and they have a celebration that goes on to the 4th of August in these various sun circles. And that week in Serbia is known as Kresovi, and it's translated as a week of fires and lightning. And that's interesting because it's close to what we call the full moon. We call it the thunder full moon, the one that's nearest at that time. So it's the time of lightnings and fires, a time of Kresovi in Serbia. Now, in Ireland, around the Grange age circles, let's get back to some Grange circle. There's a sort of an interesting entrance there. It's known as the Drovnak Crom Dubh, Drovnak Crom Dubh, which is a week of Crom Dubh. That's what used to be celebrated. Very similar timeline. And the main day in Serbia, as in Grange, is the 2nd of August with our Gregorian time now. And that's regarded as the last day of the summer and the first day of autumn, and even the day of the thunder god Lu. Now, in Serbia, this day is known as the day, also known for their thunder god. They got a thunder god called Perun. And in some regions in the Balkans, it's the day of Triglav, who's also the thundering sun. And there's another one in the Balkans that's a thundering sun god called Ilios. And in Greece, you might be familiar of him being Helios with an H. Now, it's worth noting that in Grange, with a complex there's a Grange circle B, this one here. That's actually known as Leos. So short of Ilios and Helios. So there's a connection there. It's still holding the Leos name. Now, the initial purpose of the Bogova Gumno circles is believed to be part of an astronomic complex. They had to work out the astronomy before they could work out the farming year. And so these sun circles are said to have been built by a local population for the purpose of their calendar calculation of solar cycles. And for some archaeologists, the Bogova Gumno sun circles in Serbia have helped us to understand the sun circle complex of the Grange circles. And there's another one there. That's what we're see those stones. I'm going to talk about those stones as well. But some researchers, they believe that the Bogova Gumno sun circles are actually part of the origin of the preach structure of Jewish and Christian religions. The way that Jewish and Christian religions are put forward, it's an order, isn't it? There's I'm trying to think of the word. There's a lot of precision amongst how it's presented. I'm going brain fuzzy here, what they call that. Anyway, it's an order of religions, and it's said to have been inspired by these sun circles. And remember, we got Celtic circles here that have the cross, and they have a circle around them. And a lot of guys will tell you, oh, that's the Christian cross with the Celtic ring, the Celtic sun around it. That's believed to have come or been inspired by doctrine, was the word I was thinking. But that's said to have been inspired, the sun circles over the Bogova Gumno, maybe more as well in other areas around the Balkans as well. So the Grange Circle A, the largest and perhaps the finest ancient stone circle we got here in Ireland. And there's 113 stones here. That thing there, 113 stones in that stone circle. Quite amazing, isn't it? And archaeologist Sean O'Riordan, he excavated the Grange stone circle in 1939. And during that time, he found over 4,000 pieces of pottery that dated over quite a span from early Neolithic right through to late Bronze Age. And so, therefore, the Grange area, even though the stones might be new, according to Helen Roach, there's 2,600 years of ancient history from just the findings there. So, as Helen said, that this is an older area than the stone circle. And I think O'Riordan's discoveries kind of align with that. So back to Serbia and considering the Serbian word for food. They have a word for food that's pronounced as rana, but it has an H in it. So it's Hrana. So it's pronounced as rana. And elsewhere, going up to north up into Poland there, the word changes from rana to grana with a G on the front. And the word gra is still used in Serbia, and it's a word that they use to describe legume seeds, beans, because the actual old meaning of gra is small and round. Now, to return to Grange again, there are two stones that are of huge significance there. If you've been there, you've probably been guided to these. So first, here we go. There's the big one. That's the big rectangular one, known as the Rannoch Crom Dubh. And that's where Rannoch has a very clumsy English translation. It's one of those words that is not meant to even be translated into English. It's sort of locked into its ancient language. But if you went to English, the sort of best the scribes came up with was either Rannoch meaning division or a department. But let's think of Rannoch Crom Dubh. That's probably, as I say, it's very special. It's a separate place for the celebration of Crom Dubh. Now, the stone here, that big stone, is 4 meters, 13 feet high, and it weighs 40 tons, they say. And beside this huge stone is a real fascinating one. I think everybody loves this when they visit here. It looks like a pile of risen breads to me. And you see people donate coins there. And that, to me, that's a celebration of the Crom Dubh. Thank you for the harvest. That's what those stones are. Is that supposed to be a piles of bread there that's beside the big Rannoch Crom Dubh there. And anyway, I'm going to come back to that stone because with the stone here, there we are. I have a front vision there. And the Grange, it does look as if it was actually an observatory as well before it changed its purposes linked to the grain. Now, going back to the that big stone, Rannoch Crom Dubh, I would wonder, I was talking about Rana and Grana. What about if it was Rannoch Rana Gana? Tongue twister, that's why people don't say it. Rannoch Rana Grana, which sort of translates to plenty of food from the grain. Now, last Sunday, I briefly mentioned the goddess Gronya. And that's an obvious one. Our words for grain, cereals, corn, grain, gronya. And then we got grana over in Serbia. There you go. And there's some thought that Crom is really saying gronya as well, is Crom from the word gronya. That would put quite a dissolve on the masculine deity of Crom, wouldn't it? But I did suggest last Sunday that Crom Cruach is the sun and the ripening of cereals, and the sun does seem to take on the masculine deity like Lu. But while Crom Dubh, who's present after the cut, the harvested cereals after they're cut, it does seem to take on a Crom Dubh story. And that, to me, holds a very feminine deity, because you're not going to have crops without water from underground. You need the sun for the ripening, but there was the water from the underground. It's a partnership. Now, what I have not mentioned is that this huge granite Crom Dubh stone, bring it up again, it once is said to have had a huge bull. It said that actually had a bull on it that seemed to have faded away. I'm going to talk more about that because I'm going to talk about Crom Dubh shortly. So before I get to that, let's see what you're saying. Greetings from soggy Wexford. I hope you catch the beginning of this. They're nice to have you here, Elizabeth. Kate's enjoying the stones, and I hope the stories as well. Hope it's making sense. A lovely Eileen. Thanks for being aboard as well. Now, a moment now to think of these circles as threshing circles. Now, that doesn't sound very spiritual, doesn't it? It doesn't sound highly spiritual, but I think it is. So I've got a new set of photos for that. Back to Serbia, where the first day of the threshing, before they start threshing, what they do is put up a pole with a sheaf of grain on it. There it goes. That's a sort of artist's impression of what they did there. What's the tradition there? That's called a stoza, with that post with the sheaf on it. And it's a central pole in the middle of the circle. In the middle of what's now the stone circle has turned into a threshing floor. And that pole stays there until the end of the threshing. And there's a young lad who's impersonating a threshing pole there. So that's part of the celebrations as well. Because a sheaf of wheat stuck on top of the stoza, there you go. That's what you got to do. And there's a human version of me. Now, this seems very similar to the symbolism of the golden idol of Crom Cruach, especially in Muxlech. Now, Cruach in Irish legends also seems to mean a sheaf as well, meaning a heap of grain. Now, the Balkans, I'm jumping about because in the Balkans, they've actually got a word called Cruach, which means heap of grain. And it can mean the first loaf of bread, the first harvest bread as well. So you got Cruach and Cruach, very similar words again. Now, let's consider the Grange and Limerick again. There's an overhead. It's a dark one, but it's an overhead picture. I've read elsewhere, sorry, I have no citations for this, but the word Grange coming from words in Ireland such as, I should have the spellings of this, but I'll try the pronunciations, as Gronsi, Gronshi, and Gronshik. So each of those has a grom, but what it means, all those words translates as being a granary on a monastic farm. Now, why a granary on a monastic farm? Why can't it just be an ordinary farm? Now, there's a thought that many medieval monasteries were built on the grounds of old granges, and the old granges were originally threshing floors. And it seems that many, if not all, were dedicated to Crom Cruach or Dubh as a god of the grain. Now, some people today believe this is, as I say, a patriarchal story, and that the true dedication should be for Gronya, just in the same way as with Teochew. But remember, Lu is the sun, Crom Cruach is the sun beaming down, but the harvesting is very much in the hands of Teochew or of Gronya, or Gra. Now, for now, I'm going to linger with that word, Gronchik, for threshing floor, and Gronya for the grain that is actually threshed on the floor. Now, these threshing floors are believed to have originally been sun circles. And here's another sun circle here. That's another one that's in Serbia. And And these sun circles were built originally with alignments to serve as a solar calendar to assist the local people to recognize the points of season changes. Now, farming, when you think about it, and those who are farmers, your farming is controlled by the weather, which changes with the season. And weather is mainly aligned by the sun and its annual cycle. Now, in order to know when specific farming activity has to be done, we need to know exact dates, or close enough anyway. And this determines the exact time and the exact dates when farmers need to do stuff. So this is where the stone circles came in. They acted as solar observances. And it does seem there was a hierarchy of farmers. And the top level would be the scholars, the farmer scholars, and they could calculate the year and decide where the alignment of stones could be placed. And they would create the seasonal clock with these stones, so farmers could tell the time. And as we talked about the settled relationship between the fur bolts and the Tuatha Dé Danann earlier, it does seem the Tuatha Dé Danann had the rank of being the solar and astronomical observers. And they could calculate the sidereal year calculations to determine the equinoxes, the solstices, and the cross-quarter days. Now, the Grange stone circle is aligned with the rising sun at summer solstice. And what happens to the summer solstice? In the morning of the summer solstice, the sun shines on top of that, on top of here. Boom, the sun goes, boom, on the top of here, it aligns in it. There's an alignment stone the other side. Sorry, I haven't got the photo of it. And then on the sunny summer solstice morning, that casts a shadow with the sun there. There's a tree in the way now anyway, onto the center of the circle. And that center of the circle is obviously where the pole goes with the sheaf on it. And through having that calculation of the summer solstice, and it said in ancient times there were more sunny summer solstices than we get today. We get more cloudy ones now. So it's much more reliable to do that measurement. So that determined the exact date of the summer solstice. And that was then regarded as the starting point of the solar year. From that, and Loughcrew goes into this a bit if you go into Loughcrew. From that, it's as if they calculated 13 months to form a lunar calendar. And that is annually accurate. Obviously, you don't do the lunar calendar from the solstice, but they look for the moon that's close to that shadow. So the moon close to that shadow becomes the starting point for the 13 months lunar calendar. Now, to be able to determine dates through this lunar calendar, it provides a good prediction of the weather that's going to appear at each lunar cycle. Now, for the ancients, that seemed to provide an understanding of the will of the sun god. So this is where you got a relationship: gold for sun, silver for moon. And also the will of the earth goddess as well, Grania. Now, around Ireland, it might seem that we see cows and sheep. You travel around Ireland now, what do you see? Cows and sheep everywhere. You don't actually see cereal. You certainly don't see barley growing. But in ancient times, local grown cereals was essential. Otherwise, the families, clans, and tribes wouldn't survive. They couldn't import from the south of Vario or Varian. They couldn't import from the UK. They couldn't rely on Europe, Russia, or even the USA to get their grains. They had to get their cereals locally, and that's why they grew. And cereals can only be grown or sown when the soil thaws and the temperature of the soil reaches 5 centigrade today or 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Otherwise, the seeds are not going to germinate. They're just going to sit there and go moldy, no crop. But at 5 centigrade, 40 Fahrenheit, when the soil is there, the temperature here for that is about the end of March till the end of April that you get out. We get that soil temperature. And after then, the soil temperature increases, and it can be up to 20 centigrade, 68 centigrade. Say that again. 20 centigrade, 68 Fahrenheit by summer solstice. So cereals were usually sown around the 15th of April. And if we consider our modern Gregorian calendar, and after the cereal germinates, it then takes between 105 to 115 days for that spring wheat to grow and ripen before harvest. Now, this is why the harvest time is the last day of July these days, according to the Gregorian calendar. Though with the ancients using sidereal time, it would have been, as we know, as around the 6th or 7th of August now. But for communities that didn't have a residential astronomer or a mathematician, it's assumed they just watched the moon instead. So if they sowed their seed, their cereal seed, at the pink full moon, and they can identify that by looking around the wildflowers. If the herb robbert's out, the saxifrage, the primroses, buttercups, marsh marigolds, once they're in bloom, and there's a full moon, boom, that's the one where you do the sowing. So you can recognize, it makes you think, was the pink through the herb robert? No, it's because the closeness gives a pink sheen on it. And then 4 moons later, and they can work that out, 4 moons from the sowing, it's the barley moon, which is 112 days later, and that's the harvesting. So a quick summing up of the threshing temples. First, the stone circles, the sun circle of stone alignments was a consideration. Let's get another one up. There's another sun circle for you. That's a Serbian one again. Then the moon calendar put into place from there. The sowing by the pink moon, and then harvesting at the barley moon, which is 4 months later, with Crom Cruach and Groin overseeing, of course. And then there's threshing inside the sun circle. There's a Serbian threshing gathering there, and they got the horses. And there's, at that time, there is honor for the sun god and thanks to the earth goddess as well before the threshing carries on. So now I'm going to complete this Lunasa session, and I'm nearly at the end. Just a little bit on Crom Dubh last, and just see what you're saying here for a moment. They are. Good morning. Seven Serpents is here. Good morning. Elizabeth is saying they are for some reason. This old man, of course, Elizabeth says it always makes sense. I look forward to these broadcasts. Thank you very much for saying that. I hope it puts that into perspective, the whole concept of farming as how it comes into it. Because a lot of people that enter the stone circles and they're focused on the gods and goddesses, but perhaps they're not fully understanding why. They know the alignments are important to farming. So that's why I've gone into the technical farming year to help perhaps a further understanding of that, because without clocks, without calendars, what's an ancient person to do? So I'll finish this 4-part series just on Crom Dubh, because he seems to have descended from Crom Cruach, of course, and Crom Dubh was more of a worship. It was of a ritual, whereas Crom Cruach seemed to be of a god. So Crom Dubh went underground and became more of a mythology. And the practice of Crom Dubh somehow fell into the Gregorian calendar as a Crom Dubh Sunday. And again, that got shifted to the last Sunday of July. But for a couple of 100 years or so, recently, or not long after the Christian, they didn't like Crom Dubh. The early Christian church, the medieval church, didn't like Crom Dubh. But what was acceptable was go to the last Sunday in July, especially after Gregorian time. And the people who didn't like the idea, Garland Sunday, okay, Bilberry Sunday was fine. And so it became Bilberry Sunday to a lot of people and Garland Sunday to a lot of church people. But even under the banners of Bilberry Sunday and Garland Sunday, gifts of crops and produce and the flower gardens are still taken up the hills in a lot of places. And they've been taken up to the hillsides right through the Christian church time under the celebration of Bilberry Sunday, of Garland Sunday. And they're buried. They're taken up at the top of the hill and they're buried in as an offering to the fallen dark one. That's what it used to be called, which these days is known as the mother of Kayak or Kayak and Hag rather than the male Crom. So it's possible that Crom Dubh is really a 5,000-year-old deity. Now, going back to the Balkans again for this one, where Crom Dubh deity is actually known similar in parts of the Balkans, as Crom Dubh. Now, Crom Dubh is known as the given god, and he's also known in the region in one form or another, all the way up from the Balkans, right from the Baltic. And this name changes. He's Crom Dubh along the Black Sea around the Balkans. But as we move up, he becomes known as Dubh or Dashbog or Dazbog. And the Serbs themselves believe that they are all descended from this Dashbog, this sort of god of everything, of God. And of course, we talk about in Ireland, there's the people, the Tuatha De Danann, being descended from the goddess Danu, from the Danube, same region. So you got this Dazbog, you got Danube, you got Dagda. I mentioned about Doida from Scotland, but you got this other word as well, this Dazbog, the Dabog, and Dashbog in its variations. Similar wording, but same kind of thought descended from that. So Crom Dubh is known as the great elder, as the great ancestor. And of course, in the Christian faith, start talking about this person, and the Christian faith just say, that's the devil. And I think I've got an artist's impression of Crom Dubh here. Here he is, Crom Dubh. That's him. And so there we go. The Christian faith, devil. And because the image has two horns, we can think of Herne the Hunter and Ceraunus, the bull. I said about the bull on the Crom stone in Grange, and that's famous on a pot from the area there. From I think that was a Baltic find, wasn't it? It's in the English British Museum. Beautiful thing there, and there's lots of interpretations with the serpents. And you can say, okay, that's who is that? Is that Crom Dubh? Is that Crom Dubh? Is it Herne the Hunter? Or is it Ceraunus that's being portrayed there? All same symbols, I believe. And then let's not forget the Minotaur in the Greek mythology, the half-human, half-bull at the center of the labyrinth. And that whole weaving into the labyrinth and weaving out, a lot of symbolism for the coming up to this harvest time, I believe. Anyway, Crom Dubh, that goes back into mythology in Balkan times, about 6,000 years. And it comes out of the Vincas as well. And so, as I've been saying, Crom Dubh is linked to the bull culture. So we're all linked into these hoardy things, and a lot of convenience. Now, one thing to think about, when the sowing takes place in May, take the cross-quarter day for Beltane, that's the middle of the age of Taurus. And the age of Taurus was about between 4,000 and 2,000 years ago. So this ritual of Crom Dubh and the corn gods, that goes back a lot further, actually goes back into the age of Gemini. But I mentioned earlier the Rana Crom Dubh, the largest ring in Grange, had a bull carved on it, and it's assumed to have faded away. Now, the times of soil warm and germination for the sowing of cereals, the cereals start popping up around Beltane time. They actually have germinated, the soil is warmed up, pop, pop, they come on out. That's Beltane. That's the middle of the month of Taurus, and the seeds went in around the beginning of Taurus. So that's a celebration, as we know in Beltane, as a time of mating and fertility. So there's a lot of mating rituals, as I mentioned, around Beltane. And here we have this Taurus, the bull, for the mating, right at that point of the cross quarter. Now, as the cereal is sowing, this is all regarded as being a Tauran influence. And then at Lunasa, the original sidereal time of Lunasa, the Crom Dubh day, the original one, we're right in the middle of Leo then. And that's when the barley and other cereal crops are cut. And Leo is ruled by the sun, if you know your astrology a bit. And that's the end of the crop season. And because that crop season started with Taurus, the bull, it seems that the sacrifice of this time may have been a bull to celebrate that wonderful growing and cropping season. And now the bull is done. It's finished with. We're out of that, what was started at Taurus. We're now into the sun with Leo. The crops are in, they're going to be stored. Don't need the bull anymore until next year. So let's get rid of the bull. Let's make bread and let's have beef with the new bread. So poor old bull, that's it. That's some beef for the feasting for Lunasa. And it somehow seems that people say that's Crom stone, that stone, if I can get it back again, it said that this stone here, let's get back to the stone picture again, if I can find a sample of it. The Killycluggin stone, that was actually used for the blood of the bull, or what was done at the top. It's like a grill on the top, isn't it? That was a bit of bull was put there, and the blood was observed going down as part of the reverence for it. So that's my one theory. Was it the sacrifice of the bull for feasting because the time of Taurus is done? However, there's another thought. In the threshing circle, horses are portrayed. There's some horses in the threshing circle. There's that pole in the middle I was telling you about, still used, the Crom Cruach pole, and even though it's short there, maybe that man thinks he's Crom Cruach there, but there's the horses going around doing the threshing inside the sun circle there. And to move around the cereal to thresh them, they need to do that. That's to separate the seeds from the straw, of course. And before there were horses, there were probably bulls doing this. I haven't got any pictures of oxen and bulls doing this. So the bull may have been revered for that purpose. So there you have the big stone there. Maybe it wasn't anything to do with slaughter and feasting. Maybe this was just there, the bull stone, just as to be a kind of reverence for the bull who's actually going to be in there threshing as well. And so because the bull might have been representative of the goddess in some way, like those Balkan goddesses that were kind of on all fours there. So there's, I'll leave it to you. Was it bull sacrificing, or was it reverence for the bull who's going to be doing the threshing? I'm sorry, the one thing I can't answer with that is how they dealt with the manure challenge that would have happened with such activity. Back to the horses again. Anyway, the cereal was threshed, stored. It seems the Crom Dubh, or today we may think of the underworld kayak goddess beyond the veil, is now pulling the debris from the field. There's remains of the straw, and maybe that's the stones going under. Everything is going back into the soil, ready for. It's going to be ploughed up. Some people do plough up in the autumn for a first ploughing, and it's all going back to become regenerated, transformed into the next new life for the next spring. So there's a lot of stories I'm going to come up with that. I could say a lot more about this Lunasa time, but I'm now going to give it a rest for this year. And I've left with the image of the Doida with his club. Let's see. Something I didn't point out. Here's a Crom Dubh here. This one's from Cron, the base of Mount Bandon. You may be familiar, the first of this. I talked about Bandon as being one of the places like Croagh Patrick, where people went on pilgrimages to the top of Mount Bandon. And we actually had where they've got Patrick at the bottom of Croagh Patrick, then they had this one that was the bottom. They had the real deal there at the bottom, Crom Dubh, right at the bottom, who'd been moved to Garland Sunday. And there he is, the day of Crom. But unfortunately, he was stolen in 1993. But I think next year they're going to have a replica put there for the people who climb Mount Bandon. I think that's going to happen from next year. So I'm left with the image here of Dagda. There's Dagda as a card. There he is with his club. But there again, that club, is that actually a Crom stone? Then he's got his cauldron of plenty there. Does that come from the horn of plenty? And then he's got the harp for the poetry and the art as part of the celebration of it all. The harp for the feasting, celebration, and poetry and stories of all these grand deeds done in the past, and the harvest, and how all this wonderful godly and goddess stuff is happening. You know what happens when people start making beer from the barley and they have a celebrate, and all the enchantments come, and it's all the enchantment from the water, all the deeds of merrymaking, and there you go. That's where the harp comes in, I'm sure. And of course, let's not forget Dagda's eventual mating, is winter mating every year around Yule, around mid-winter with a kayak, and that ensures the new harvest grows next year. So Lunasa time's the only time I really refer to farming on the Nature Folklore. I've got apple celebrations coming up next month, and a little bit on the last harvest at Sawan. But usually I'm going to go back next week, reverence to water, trees, their usual lovely stuff, the she deities, Om, scribing. I'm going all back to that now. So I hope you enjoyed these 4 weeks. You may think, what's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of all these ancient Lunasa and Crom stories? What's it got to do with us today? Well, I think it's very good for us to actually have a smell the roses moment, as I call it. Slow down. Let's reflect, and let's think about our culture now. And, you know, are we following the season? Are we following this month? Are we harvesting? Are we storing stuff? Are we just calling out for a pizza? Or maybe we're making pizza, the stuff that came out of our polytunnel 2 months ago. It's kind of changed around a lot now, isn't it now? But I'm saying at this time, let's not forget about those origins. Let's smell the roses for a moment and observe about how the world is perhaps fed by this season. And I think for our urge to return to some sustainable lifestyle and personal inner peace, it's good to slow down in our own sanctuary for a moment, to be reminded of what's going on in the realm of nature, in the realm of the seasons we're part of, and in these realm of seasons where we have become organized into farmers. And I believe the stories of these deities, many are of fantasy. They're a wonderful enchantment to understand, and they help us understand the flow of what's going on through the seasons that we may otherwise ignore and seem to lose our place in this cycle of the living. So thank you for following these 4 Sundays. Thank you for following Nature Folklore generally. I apologize, this was quite a jumbled epic saga from the first harvest over to the Croms over these past 4 Sundays. Next year, I'll try and be a bit more concise. I could have gone on for 6 weeks and 8 weeks, but come on, let's get back to the Nature Folklore as it is. And let's see what you're saying as I'm kind of winding down now. Subtitles are hilarious. Seeing my farming now even deeper, more spiritual. And there's someone in the USA, but we're Northern Hemisphere. So, and Kate, I think you understood the underlying stuff because of how you post and the things that you say. So, you know, you could be Gronya herself from what you say. So that's wonderful. Thanks for that, Kate. And again, if you're not a subscriber, please consider becoming a member. I do push this, but goodness, it does help tremendously to help keep the show on the road. And coming up in the Nature Folklore sessions coming up, we're going to have guests next week again. It's Poets for Heritage, so you poets out there for heritage, please come up with stuff. Poets for Heritage, it's focused very much on water. Please come up with your poems on rivers, on lochs, on the seashore, even the water that is held in the bogs as an inspiration. So submit them to me. We can do it in different ways. You can have pre-recorded videos or be live on with me in the show. And if you're actually passing, I'm going to be in a different location next week. But message me and we'll sort this out. Anyway, 29th of August, also another one for guests. Any of you that are herbalists out there, please join in with this one. It's sensing herbs. And the whole idea of sensing herbs is using your herbs, judging your herbs by your senses rather than reach for a herb book. This is what this is about, how to actually go out there and sense the herbs, to actually approach plants the same way as a dog or a cow or a deer, a cat. They approach plants when they need it, and they can sense by the smell, the look, the touch, taste. So this is all about a herbal approach using our senses rather than books. And if you are sensitive, sensory herbalist, please contact me. I'd love to have you as guests for that. That's 29th of August. And then the 5th of September, it used to be lovely when we had this in the cottage, but the COVID is still preventing. Harvest Home. And Bridget Foy put that one together when she came and visited here. We always have a feast early September. So let's talk about the Harvest Home. And again, let's have you as guests talking about your harvest from your homes, from your wee farms, and even from your local, even if you weren't able to farm this year, what about your local home farm shop? And what are they doing? And what you're bringing home from your farm shops? So that's it. We're talking about harvests of our veggies and stuff, and what we've stored and how we're doing it. And that's on the 5th of September. So that's going to be great fun. Let's see, round up with what you're saying here. Hello from Massachusetts. Hello. Susan, I hope you could go back to the archive and go through this again for you. These videos are great help as I want to become active and participate in seasonal drama instead of being an observer. Well, that's a lovely thought, Seven Serpents. It's really all natural to us. I like telling the stories. I think it prompts us. I don't think, perhaps from what I'm saying, maybe it's not a learning process. I'm not trying to be some sort of guru or teacher or lecturer, even though I am lecturing. I like the idea, if any of this is mentoring and inspiring or bringing some courage to stuff you knew already. Yeah, I know that. I make sense of that. That's what I'm doing. Oh, yes, now I get it. All these sort of responses. And it's stuff you've always known, but somehow visions come to you. And that's why I say at the beginning, you're in your sanctuary space, work with the visions, write it down with your poetry, your problem solving, all that stuff. And that's what this is all about. So thanks for bringing that up, the Seven Serpents. You've really, I think, got the gist of what, Suzanne wants to watch the replays. So thanks for popping in anyway and saying hello. I always appreciate that. It's lovely to have a live audience, even though we are. So if you're watching this after the broadcast as an archive, please leave your comments here, because I will chat with the comments as well. I return from time to time and give you a few answers. Subscribe to the bell if you're on the YouTube. I think Facebook's got one as well. And that will send you a reminder of the next month's session. So thank you all. Been lovely sharing this with you. Sorry it was just me, but there's a hell of a lot of material. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. I've really gone on long. I think this might be the longest one ever. So I'm going to try and be more concise next time. So enjoy a safe week full of wonder, inspirations and enchantments. Until next Sunday, play well, have great fun, and be inspired well. So that's me. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thank you.